There is a moment on this footage where a Las Vegas cop pulls up to a house, steps out of his cruiser, and you can see him physically stop walking. He just stands there. And when you hear what the family inside told 911 minutes before he arrived, you will understand exactly why. We are going through 10 of the strangest things ever caught on police body cameras and dash cams, real footage, real incidents, and in a few of these cases, explanations that are somehow weirder than the footage itself. Some of these you have probably seen pieces of, but there are layers to most of them that almost nobody talks about, and by the end of this, you are going to look at police footage completely differently. Let's get into it. So the second thing on this list is something that sounds almost too simple to be interesting, but stick with me, because once you understand it, you'll never watch a body cam clip the same way again. You've probably noticed that almost every body cam video starts in complete silence. No audio, just video for the first 30 seconds or so. And if you've ever wondered why, here's the actual answer. Most body cameras are recording constantly, but they are writing to a short temporary buffer, about 30 seconds of silent video before the officer ever hits the record button. The moment the officer activates the camera, that silent buffer gets attached to the front of the clip. So the footage technically starts before the officer even knew they were filming. Now that sounds like a boring technical detail, but the reason it matters is because that silent pre-record window has become one of the most legally significant 30 seconds in modern policing. In London, an officer's silent pre-record buffer captured a fight breaking out before the officer had any idea it was happening, and that footage became the foundation of an entire assault case. The crime was documented before anyone knew to document it. But here's where it flips into something much darker. In Baltimore, that same 30-second window caught an officer who appeared to place a small bag and a soup can in a backyard, then walk away, then activate his camera, and then discover the evidence he had just planted. The charges in that case were dropped. The footage that exposed him wasn't footage he chose to record, it was the footage he thought didn't exist yet. So every time you see a body cam clip start in silence, you're watching a system that was designed to protect officers and the public at the same time, and it works both ways. That's a genuinely fascinating piece of how this technology operates, and most people have no idea. But that's actually one of the more straightforward entries on this list, because some of the footage here doesn't have a clean explanation at all. In April of 2023, a family in Las Vegas called 911 to report something in their backyard. Not a prowler, not a noise. They told the dispatcher there were two beings in their yard, 8 to 10 feet tall, not human, and they sounded genuinely terrified. Officers responded. And when they arrived, the footage from their body cameras showed them moving carefully through the property, flashlights cutting across the dark, clearly taking the call seriously. Nothing was found that night. The family maintained their story, and for a while that's where it seemed like it would end. A strange 911 call, some spooked officers, no explanation. But here's the part that got buried in the coverage. About 40 minutes before that 911 call, a completely different officer was responding to a completely unrelated call across the city. His body camera was rolling, and it caught something crossing the sky, a low, fast-moving fireball, bright green, streaking across the frame before disappearing. That officer had no idea what it was. He kept working his original call. It turned out at least 21 people across 4 states reported the same green light to the American Meteor Society that same night. NASA's planetary defense officer reviewed the reports and said the object was almost certainly a bolide, an exceptionally bright meteor burning up in the atmosphere. Scientifically, that's the most reasonable explanation for the light. What it doesn't explain is what the family saw in their yard. A skeptic later pointed out that a circular impression in the gravel that the family cited as evidence was actually visible in photographs taken before that night. So the physical evidence didn't hold up. But the 911 call, the body cam footage of the responding officers, and that separate camera catching the fireball 40 minutes earlier, all of that is real, documented, and sitting in the public record released by LVMPD. What's strange isn't that there's a mystery here. What's strange is how many separate verified pieces of footage all ended up pointing at the same night, and how the most credible explanation still leaves part of the story unaccounted for. Now let's talk about something that is funny, but also genuinely raises a question about where policing is headed. A police department in Heber City, Utah, was using an AI-powered report writing system, the kind that's being quietly rolled out in departments across the country to help officers file paperwork faster. The officer was wearing his body camera. The AI was processing the footage and audio to generate a draft incident report, and somewhere in that process, the software picked up something in the background, maybe a TV, maybe ambient noise. Nobody's entirely sure. What the AI wrote in the official report was that the officer had, during the course of the incident, transformed into a frog. That's the actual line. In an official police document, generated by artificial intelligence that was supposed to be making law enforcement more efficient. And look, it's funny. It's genuinely funny. But the reason it ended up on this list isn't the joke, it's what the joke reveals. AI report writing tools are being integrated into real police departments right now, and they are hallucinating details and writing them into legal documents. The Heber City case got noticed because it was absurd enough to be caught. The question nobody's really answering is how many less absurd hallucinations are making it through. The officer's body cam footage was rolling the whole time. The AI processed it and produced fiction. That's a strange thing to watch happen to a system designed to document truth. Here's one that's just pure chaos from start to finish, and the footage is exactly what you'd expect from a story that involves a man, a swamp, and an alligator that had opinions about the situation. In St. Charles Parish, Louisiana, a suspect fled from deputies into a marsh. Now, if you've ever seen Louisiana marshland, you already know this was not a smart decision, but the deputies had to follow, which made it their problem too. The suspect was running, the deputies were running. And then, from somewhere in the water, an alligator made a decision. The suspect got hit. He kept running anyway, which honestly, respect the commitment. Deputies eventually lost visual contact in the marsh. They called in a drone. The drone located him. And when they finally got to him, he was in pretty rough shape, not from the deputies, but from the gator. The whole thing was captured between the body cameras on the ground and the drone footage overhead. And watching those two feeds together is genuinely surreal. You have deputies on foot trying to navigate chest-high water and reeds, and then this aerial view showing exactly where the suspect is and exactly why he stopped running. The footage came from the St. Charles Parish Sheriff's Office, and it's one of those clips where the environment itself becomes the third character in the story. Now we're getting into the entries that are strange in a quieter way. Less chaos, more how did this happen? In Salinas, California, a suspect broke into a movie theater by going through the roof, which, fine, an unusual entry point, but not unheard of. The problem was the exit. He fell through the ceiling into a wall cavity, not the theater floor, not a back room, a gap inside the wall itself, about the width of a person running vertically between the interior and exterior walls of the building. He was stuck in there for 10 hours. Officers eventually found him because they were taking a break at a coffee station near the building and heard someone screaming from inside the wall. They had to cut through the drywall to get him out. And the footage of that extraction, this guy emerging from a hole in the wall, covered in insulation, having spent the better part of a day trapped between two layers of a movie theater, is one of those clips that you have to watch twice just to confirm what you're seeing is real. He was arrested. He was also treated for dehydration. The movie theater presumably patched the wall. If you're enjoying this, hit subscribe, and we put out videos like this regularly, and the next one is already in the works. And if there's a piece of body cam footage you think belongs on a list like this, drop it in the comments. Some of the best stuff we found came from people pointing us toward clips we hadn't seen. Now, heavy equipment chases. This needs its own category in police work because it keeps happening and it is always exactly as absurd as it sounds. In Massachusetts, a man stole a front-end loader and led police on a chase at approximately 15 miles per hour. In Nevada, a man stole a front-end loader, was pursued by two separate patrol cars, rammed both of them, and then was shot after refusing to stop. These are not isolated incidents, and there is a documented pattern of people stealing front-end loaders and attempting to use them as getaway vehicles. And every single time the footage is this bizarre combination of extremely slow and extremely dangerous. The dash cam footage from the Massachusetts chase is almost meditative. You've got a full-size front-end loader moving down a road at jogging pace, a police cruiser following at a respectful distance, and a dispatcher trying to relay updates on a pursuit that is technically still happening. The Nevada footage is less meditative. When a machine that weighs 40,000 pounds turns toward your patrol car, the speed stops mattering. What makes this a pattern rather than just two weird stories is that the footage from both incidents looks almost identical. Same machine, same pace, same officers trying to figure out what the protocol is for a situation that nobody specifically trained for. There isn't a chapter in the Academy manual that says front-end loader pursuit procedure, and yet here we are. Twice documented, probably more that never made the news. This next one is the one that will stick with you, and not because it's scary or violent. It's actually kind of funny in a way that makes you feel slightly bad for laughing. In Newburgh Heights, Ohio, officers pulled over a car that had been reported stolen. Standard stop, routine approach. And when they got to the window, the driver was 11 years old. The passengers were 8 and 12. The officers' body cameras caught the whole conversation, and the kids were remarkably calm about the whole thing. When asked how they knew how to drive, the 11-year-old explained that they had learned from YouTube videos. Specifically, they had watched videos on how to steal and drive cars, and then they had done exactly that. Now, this is a YouTube video, so there's an obvious irony here that we're not going to pretend doesn't exist. But what the footage actually shows, beyond the absurdity of the situation, is the officers genuinely not knowing how to process what they're looking at. You can see them trying to maintain composure. One of them steps away from the car at one point. The kids are sitting there completely unbothered, and the adults are the ones who need a moment. All three were taken into custody. No one was seriously hurt. And the 11-year-old's driving, according to the officers on scene, was actually pretty decent for someone who learned on YouTube. Let's talk about something that starts as a routine welfare check and turns into something that still doesn't have a fully satisfying explanation. On January 7th, 2024, an officer with the Maple Heights Police Department, southeast of Cleveland, responded to a call about a driver slumped over the wheel in a residential neighborhood. He pulled up, got out, approached the vehicle. Standard welfare check. The driver was conscious, just seemed disoriented. And the conversation that followed was the kind of low-stakes back and forth that officers have dozens of times a week. And then the driver hit the gas. What happened next was captured on the officer's body camera and the dash cam, and it went from 0 to genuinely terrifying in about 4 seconds. The officer was partially in the vehicle when it started moving. He got clear. The car accelerated onto the highway, and then you're listening to this officer on the radio, completely calm, completely professional, calling out a pursuit on Interstate 480 westbound, speeds climbing past 80 miles per hour, past 90 miles per hour, road conditions wet, traffic building. The car wasn't handling well. Parts were coming off. The officer eventually had to back out of the pursuit because his cruiser couldn't keep pace and the conditions were getting dangerous. Other units picked it up. The suspect's vehicle eventually slowed on its own. Something mechanical gave out, and it ended without a crash. What stays with you from that footage isn't the speed or the danger. It's the officer's voice on the radio, steady, clear, giving updates every 10 seconds like he'd rehearsed it, even though his hands were probably shaking. That's what training looks like under pressure, and the camera caught every second of it. The last entry on this list is the one that brings everything together in a weird way because it's a story about documentation failing in real time. A police department integrated an AI report writing assistant. An officer was on a call. The camera was rolling. The AI was listening and processing. And when the report came back, it contained a detail that was not just wrong, it was cosmically wrong. The officer, according to the official document, had undergone a physical transformation during the incident into a frog. We already covered this one, but the reason it earns the final spot is because of what it represents. Every single entry on this list exists because a camera was running. The Las Vegas backyard footage, the Baltimore evidence planting, the 11-year-old driver, the alligator chase, the man in the wall, all of it is documented because someone was wearing a camera or a camera was mounted to a dashboard. The footage is the record. The footage is the truth. And then you have a system designed to process that footage and summarize it, and it produces a document saying, the officer became a frog. The camera told the truth. The AI generated a story. That gap between what the lens captures and what gets written down is actually the most important story in all of these clips combined, because the footage only matters if the record reflects what the footage shows. And right now, in departments across the country, that record is increasingly being written by software that hallucinates. So here's where we landed. 10 incidents, all documented on camera, all strange in completely different ways. Some of them are strange because of what happened. A family's 911 call, a fireball crossing the sky, a man emerging from a movie theater wall. Some of them are strange because of what the footage revealed about the systems around the incident. The 30-second silent buffer that catches what officers don't want caught. The AI that invents details in official reports. What changed from the beginning of this video to now is that you have context. Body cam footage looks like raw truth, and a lot of the time it is. But the technology that records it, processes it, and stores it has its own logic, its own gaps, and its own failure modes. The Las Vegas fireball footage is real. The Baltimore planted evidence footage is real. The 11-year-old behind the wheel is real. What you do with all of that depends on understanding not just what the camera shows, but how the camera works. If any of these sent you down a rabbit hole, the comment section is right there. We read them, and some of the best leads for future videos have come from people dropping clips or cases we hadn't heard of. Subscribe if you want to see what we put together next, because we're already working on something that makes a few of these look straightforward by comparison.